Hi Cancer, welcome to a twin flame union reading for January and February 2020. It's Raina here. This is from tarot.com. I think that's the name. Is it tarot? livetarot.com. And so I'm just going to put out the cards and then I will tell you what each position is supposed to mean, because this is only the second reading I've done with that spread. Okay, and it's a very tiny little, I got this from Pinterest, but when I saved it, it's very tiny, so I have to put my laptop on my, literally on my lap. So the first position is, what do I really want from this union? And the Temperance card is about something that is combining the spiritual and the material. And so, for instance, that means that usually when I hear people talking about twin flame situations or I read about it, it's kind of like soulmates with a cause or something like that. Maybe some people would disagree with that characterization, but that's the best that I can think of. Like there's a feeling that you are meant to accomplish something together. You're supposed to be two individual souls that originally came from one soul, from what I understand. And so with the Temperance card, there's a sense of balance. So maybe you would like to be in what I would call a mundane partnership in addition to the spiritual partnership. And what that can mean, especially for a Cancer person, wanting that kind of like commitment in the traditional sense. Cancer tends to be a traditional sign. And these twin flame situations seem to be volatile sometimes or tenuous. One person is off with somebody else, and that's part of the whole thing. I personally don't understand the attraction of that kind of, it just seems so full of drama. But perhaps the people who are involved, it's like there's nothing they can do about it. It's just something within them that feels like destined to be with a specific person. But what I'm trying to say is that even if you do feel that sense of destiny, you probably also feel like you want to have the kind of conventional relationship along with the spiritual relationship. And, it's interesting. As I was talking, I was thinking, well, as we're in January and February, we're still dealing with a transiting North Node in your sign. So your life right now anyhow, and you have the eclipses that are attached to this, feels very important, like you're at a crossroads in some cases, like you've been changing quite a bit in the last couple of years, and you just had a lunar eclipse in your sign, and Capricorn is your opposite house, the 7th house of relationships. So the South Node is in that 7th house, and that is the karmic past. So with these types of twin flame relationships that might span many lifetimes, there might be something that either one or both of you is working on and using the other person for that. And so the fact that you might want like the whole shebang, you might want to have a family with this person, if you're older and you're just going back and forth with your twin, it might not be like having children with them physically, but maybe sharing families and things like that. Well, it's important to determine whether or not this person really falls under the category of twin flame, or maybe another type of karmic relationship that is not to that level that could be perhaps even a negative type of relationship. Because I often wonder how somebody distinguishes between a karmic relationship that is just based from one or both people not letting go, and therefore, finding each other lifetime after lifetime, but it being like kind of a toxic situation, or a twin flame situation, which can mimic some of that challenging behavior, but by the same token, may not really be something that benefits humanity, because that's what I understand as well, that twin flame, it's like you're pairing together so that you can help others, and like you're two parts of one whole. Okay, the second position is, what am I not seeing clearly about my divine masculine? So this was the one position that I changed, because I didn't understand, unless this was directed towards women, towards men, I didn't know what they mean by the divine masculine, if they're referencing the other person or inherent within ourselves. We have both feminine and masculine energy, and that sort of thing. I would say what I am not seeing clearly about that other person, rather than my divine masculine. I don't know, exactly what that means, and they don't give any explanation where I saw it. So I have decided to look at the other person, what you're not seeing with that other person. Now, remember that this is right now, and everything is, always changing with this type of relationship. And we have the Page of Swords. So one thing can be that this person may have trust issues. This person, depending on their background, they may not be ready to settle down because they have not worked out things that have happened to them when they were younger. Pages are like children. So sometimes this can be, even in the upright position, I would say, perhaps somebody who is still learning, who is still maybe a little bit immature in some ways, and their thoughts are not matured enough to be able to perceive things in the way that would allow them to be in relationships at a full adult level. And so you may be the adult in the room, so to speak, and therefore you have to have patience with this other person, but it's not about assuming control over the situation. This is one of the things, and I think Cancer people in general and any type of relationship can do, which is to take charge in the form of trying to control. And controlling is a form of codependency. There's a saying, tend to your own garden. Even when you're married or living with somebody and you have a very close relationship with somebody, like a significant other, they're on their path and you're on your path. Even though you're sharing a life together, you have to focus on your own things. And you have your own challenges too. And Cancer is a cardinal sign, so you like to initiate action and also to maybe try to control things sometimes that you feel are not where you want them to be. But if it involves somebody else, only they can get to the point where they're able to trust, or they're able to step into a more mature version of themselves. The next position is, what would my life be like if we got together? Now, that kind of surprises me, because I assumed that that the twin flame situation is on again, off again, that type of thing, like maybe the couple split up again, but they're almost making it sound like you've never really been with this person before. I mean, in this lifetime. I wouldn't necessarily say that. I mean, when I was intending for this reading, I was also intending for people who have had a history with somebody. Maybe they are currently not together, but they still have been together at one point. And we have the High Priestess. So this is a card of the spiritual, the kind of that, it's kind of funny that I got the Temperance card and then I got the High Priestess, because the Temperance card is also talking about, it's talking about the balance between the material and the spiritual. And the High Priestess would be like, you and this person have this spiritual affinity for one another, or with one another, which makes perfect sense in this type of pairing. And what I would say too is that you might help each other to grow spiritually, as well as maybe even be able to meditate together or do other spiritual practices together. The High Priestess is a passive card. So this is not about two people who are being active per se. It's two people who are helping each other go within. And really, now that I think about it, a lot of relationships falter because I believe one person has more of a spiritual path than the other. And so it's like their relationship might be based on something that's more superficial, and therefore it's not enough to sustain it. And this would be, and of course, like I said, it makes sense given that you're twin flames. How does he or she truly feel about you deep down in the heart? Okay? And we have the Ten of Wands. This is a card of a burden of some sort. Now, this is something to really consider from your own way of approaching things. Because this can, to me, the first thing that came into my head was high maintenance. And I want you to understand, Cancer, that this is not necessarily saying that this connection is hopeless, that this can't happen. This, I think, is something, and it's a trap I think sometimes Cancer falls into, where you are demanding of love. And when you demand love, which is so hard to really pin down, it's the other person who feels like they have to work for it, that they have to prove themselves. And that becomes a burden. And the other piece in this is that if the other person, especially if the other person is an air or a fire sign, they are going to be more naturally independent, and they will find that your demands feel overwhelming to them. So it could be demands for emotional demands, something along those lines. So basically how I would characterize this is, rather than look at that card and say, oh my gosh, that's, I'm so insulted. First of all, this reading is intended as kind of like food for thought. Don't take it, too seriously. But look at how, what kind of attitude do you have in love relationships in general? And I'm speaking specifically of romantic love relationships. Do you think that another person is obligated to show up in a certain way and love you in a certain way? Because you may be expecting something too much from somebody who is full of love for you, but it's not what you think is the type of love. Like, for instance, this isn't just picking on Cancer. A lot of women, I think, fall into the trap of believing that if a man doesn't say I love you, that they need to somehow force them or trick them into saying it, kind of coerce them into saying it. And to me, the better way of dealing with that type of situation is to look at the behavior of that person and see if that person treats you in a respectful way, if they seem to care, if they seem to be interested in you, giving you attention, and those sort of things, and not get hung up on one little detail, which may simply be the way that they grew up, where they didn't hear their parents saying I love you to them, and it just feels weird, or they're just kind of bashful, who knows. But fixating on that and looking at the glass half empty, if there are really a lot of good things in the relationship, can be problematic for you, and could lead to the other person finally having enough and saying, I'm not going to deal with this anymore. It's just too much of a struggle. And the final card is, where is this connection going in the future? We have the Eight of Wands. This is a very fast-paced thing. Now look, we have two cards. The last two cards are fire energy cards, and the Temperance card is connected to Sagittarius. So are you sweet on a Sagittarian? This suggests that the relationship is going to grow in leaps and bounds. If you and this person are still in the very initial stages of it, they may try to move it very fast, and you may be totally okay with that. There may be a period, like a lull period, and then all of a sudden everything seems to be happening, and it's like, I don't see that as being a problem for you if you really feel that this person is the right one for you. You may just be willing to go on this exciting journey with this person. Okay, that's what I have for you, Cancer. I hope that you enjoyed this. If you'd like a private reading, most of my readings are actually based on astrology, on your natal chart. Please check my website, rainandmoonastrology.com. The link to my online store is below. Take care. Bye.